Good evening. Welcome to the virtual town hall meeting for the South Selmon Project Development and Environment, or PD&E, Alternatives Update. This meeting is being held virtually to follow the state and county's health directives for large group gatherings. The information presented in this meeting is the same information you would have received at an in-person event. By going virtual, we can all stay healthy and up to date on the study. A PD&E study is an environmental and engineering process developed by the Florida Department of Transportation to determine the social, economic, and physical environmental impacts associated with the proposed transportation improvement project. It's basically the process that we go through when we need to increase capacity of a roadway. The purpose of this meeting is to introduce you to the Expressway Authority, to discuss the project development and environmental study, and to provide a summary of alternatives under consideration, including how we got to the final alternatives. We will also talk about next steps in the process, and of course, how you can submit your questions or comments. There's a lot of information to go over tonight, but everything that we talk about is also available on our website, and the website will be live after this meeting. We know that you have a lot of questions and we will get to them, but first I want to go through the study and present the alternatives to you. I think that if you wait until the end, most of your questions will be answered, and that's why we are not answering questions until the end of the presentation. We will keep the meeting open for approximately 30 minutes at the end of the presentation to make sure that we've answered as many questions as possible. This meeting is being recorded. By close of business tomorrow, you can find the recording and tonight's questions and answers on the Selmon Studies website, which is selmonstudies.com. The Tampa Hillsborough Expressway Authority, or THEA, is an independent transportation and tolling agency of the state. We received no tax funding, and we do all of our operations, maintenance, and new projects with toll revenues or toll bonds. We have a 7-member local board of directors, 2 elected officials, Mayor Castor and County Commissioner Miller, the District Secretary of Transportation, Secretary Gwynn, and 4 local citizens appointed by the governor, Chairman Vince Cassidy, Vice Chairman Bennett Barrow, Secretary Danny Alvarez, and member Sean Oxtel. We own, operate, maintain, and improve the Leroy Selmon Expressway, Meridian Avenue and the Selmon Greenway pedestrian path in downtown Tampa, and the Brandon Parkway and pedestrian path in Brandon. THEA is conducting this PD&E study for the south section of the Selmon Expressway to explore options to increase roadway capacity while improving safety and providing community enhancements between Himes Avenue and Whiting Street in downtown Tampa. Our study began last year and is expected to conclude in spring of 2021. Today's alternative update meeting represents a critical milestone as we present to you the alternatives that we've developed. We'll explain the stages that got us to this point, the advantages and disadvantages of each alternative. We do this so that we can get your input to help us refine the alternatives and move into the next stages of the study. The Selmon Expressway today is a heavily utilized roadway that provides a critical connection within our community and region. It serves as an alternate route to the interstate and is a key part, a key part of the state's strategic intermodal system, not to mention a designated evacuation route. The Selmon Expressway is primarily used by commuters. Even with the recent situation, the traffic, while reduced in numbers, is still following the commute pattern with heavy use in the AM and PM rush hours. Hillsborough County is expected to have 700,000 new residents by 2045. The Selmon Expressway serves more than just Hillsborough County, and those residents will be joined by new residents in Pinellas and Polk County. The new residents of all three counties use the Selmon Expressway for their daily commute. After the pandemic, traffic will continue to grow and congestion will continue to get worse. Increasing capacity on the Selmon Expressway gives commuters a choice other than using local streets. In the last 10 years, traffic on the south section of the Selmon Expressway has almost doubled. As you can see from the map, we are already at capacity or congested in the downtown area. And as many of you know, that backup from the downtown exits can extend well south of Willow during peak hours. By 2027, that's only 7 years from now, traffic on this entire section will be congested or highly congested. So let's look at where we are now at the steps of this study has taken to get to the alternatives that we will present to you tonight. There are 4 basic steps within this part of the study. First, we identify ideas on how to increase the capacity on the expressway. We call them preliminary alternatives. Then we screen those preliminary alternatives against the traffic needs for the design year and the constraints and considerations of the project. Those alternatives that meet the design year traffic needs are then refined further. The final step in this alternative stage is to gather public input and identify a preferred alternative. While we have great ideas, we must make sure that these ideas take into account the conditions, constraints, and considerations of the project. One of the biggest constraints is that we have limited right-of-way in this area. We do not want to take homes or businesses, so all of our ideas, all of our alternatives must stay within the expressway's right-of-way. We have a CSX railroad track on one side of the expressway, so we can't expand that way either. We know that there are houses where the expressway is right in their backyard. We know that there are historical districts and landmarks near the expressway. And we know that we must be mindful of the Hillsborough River waterway. And finally, we know that this section of the expressway was built over 50 years ago, so the short on and off ramps caused frequent backups. We take all of this into consideration when proposing the preliminary alternatives. So now that we've taken those considerations into account, we came up with our preliminary alternatives. Alternative 1 has 6 lanes at grade with widening to the inside. Alternative 2 has 8 lanes with widening to the inside and outside. Alternative 3 has 6 lanes with 4 lanes at grade and 2 lanes on structure. Alternative 4 has 8 lanes with 4 lanes at grade and 4 lanes on structure. And alternative 5 has 10 lanes with 6 lanes at grade and 4 lanes on structure. The elevated lanes, the lanes on structure, would start at Himes Avenue and end in downtown Tampa. Now that we have our preliminary alternatives, we can start to look at everything else: traffic, environmental, noise, etc. One of the first items on our to-do list was to conduct a traffic analysis of current and predicted future traffic. Our design year is 2046, meaning we are predicting, based on previous patterns, what the traffic will be like in 2046. This map shows the design year of 2046 with 6 lanes. What the callout is saying is that in 2033, the same area in downtown Tampa that is congested today will be congested in 2033. That's only 13 years from now. And if you add in the time it would take to get them built, it would only be about 10 years before we would be back to the same situation that we're in today. In addition, by the design year, with only 6 lanes, the south section of the expressway will be at capacity or congested again. What this shows us is that 6 lanes is not enough. By adding only 1 lane in each direction, the expressway will be at capacity in the downtown area in a little over 10 years, and the entire south section will be at capacity in approximately 15 years. What our traffic analysis showed us is that for the design year of 2046, the Selmon Expressway will need to be 8 lanes to continue to function well. Without 8 lanes, not only are the vehicles at a standstill on the expressway, but people will not pay to get on the road and will seek alternative neighborhood streets to get to their destinations. Please notice that the traffic analysis also shows congestion in the downtown area again, even with 8 lanes. However, we currently have another project development and environmental study that is looking at the Morgan Street and Florida ramps to help correct that bottleneck. Now we know that our traffic numbers for the design, now that we know our traffic numbers for the design year 2046, we can look at the preliminary alternatives to see if they meet those traffic needs. Alternative 1 was eliminated because it doesn't meet the 8-lane requirement for the design year. Each of the elevated alternatives, 3, 4, and 5, were eliminated because the elevated lanes would only be accessible at Himes Avenue and downtown Tampa, basically forming an express lane. Because of this, 3 and 4 would not meet the traffic demands of at least 3 lanes at grade, and alternative 5 was eliminated because while it provides more than enough lanes, it was far more costly than the non-elevated alternatives. We also realized that the integrity and the spirit of the neighborhoods surrounding the expressway would be compromised by an elevated structure. As you can see, only one of the original alternatives met the design criteria of 8 lanes and/or the cost analysis. So now it's time to refine the alternatives, but we only have one alternative. So we went back and put our thinking caps on. We know that we need to be at 8 lanes in 2046. The question was, is there a way to do it in phases, or do we need to do it all at once? So we came up with a 2-phased approach for alternative 1. We added a 2-lane approach for alternative 6. Alternative 1 widens to the inside first, and then comes back and widens to the outside to accommodate the 8 lanes needed. Alternative 2 widens to both the outside and inside all at once. Alternative 6 widens to the outside first and then comes back and widens to the inside to accommodate the 8 lanes. Now that we have the 3 alternatives, we must really look at each one more closely. We look at cost, we look at how we would construct it, and we looked at the noise and environmental impacts. So let's talk more about each alternative. Alternative 1 has 2 phases, interim and ultimate. The interim phase is a 6-lane roadway with widening to the inside. As shown on the slide, the typical section, the additional lane in each direction uses the median area completed as part of the current Selmon safety project while widening the existing bridges on the overpasses to the inside. This means that the bridges on the overpasses will be filled in. Alternative 1 interim will get you to 2033, but then for the ultimate phase, THEA will need to come back and increase the capacity to 8 lanes. To do this, we will widen to the outside. While this is the least expensive for the roadway today, when we come back to widen to the outside, we will have to tear out over 50% of what we just built. The total cost for Alternative 1 is $250 million, but since Alternative 1 would require demolition of prior improvements and significant reconstruction to widen to the outside, Alternative 1 has been dropped from consideration. Alternative 2 is an 8-lane roadway with widening to the inside and the outside. As shown on the typical section, Alternative 2 uses the improvements made by the Selmon Safety Project and widens the bridges on the overpasses to the inside and outside. The bridges on the overpasses will be filled in. The total cost is approximately $211 million. Alternative 6 also has 2 phases, interim and ultimate. The interim phase of Alternative the interim phase of Alternative 6 is a 6-lane roadway with widening primarily to the outside, all within the current right-of-way limits. Alternative 6 provides the same outside widening footprint as shown in Alternative 2. However, unlike Alternative 2, Alternative 6 does not require inside bridge widening at the overpass locations in the interim phase. Alternative 6 will get you to 2033, but then for the ultimate phase, THEA will need to come back and increase the capacity to 8 lanes. However, when we come back to add the additional lanes, we will only need to fill in the overpasses. We don't have to tear anything out that we've already completed. In addition, by completing this in 2 phases, THEA would be able to construct walls the entire length of the project, from Himes Avenue all the way to downtown Tampa. The work completed in the second phase would occur farther away from the neighborhoods, and the walls would lessen the typical construction impacts in the second phase. The total cost for Alternative 6 is $244 million. The study team developed a set of evaluation criteria to help compare the potential benefits and impacts of each of the alternatives. The matrix looked at the environmental impacts, cost, and engineering considerations for each of the 2 build alternatives and the no build existing condition. The matrix is a simple way to understand the findings of the study. For the no build alternative, with the projected growth of Hillsborough and surrounding counties, the congestion on the Selmon Expressway will only increase. This poses a risk that travelers will use neighboring streets to get to their destination. While there is no cost to the no build option, there's no walls with a no build either. Alternative 2 works for both the long-term and short-term. It's the most expensive if we build now, has very few required walls, and is not needed until 2033. The 2-phase Alternative 6 gives THEA the ability to fund the project now, and this gives the surrounding neighborhoods walls the entire length of the project. While THEA would still have to come back and add lanes to the projects, improvements made now would not be lost, and typical construction impacts would be lessened by the walls put in place during the interim phase. There is no cost for the no-build option. The cost for the Alternative 2 is $211 million, and the interim cost for Alternate 6 is $179 million, with a total cost of $244 million once we get into the ultimate phase. You can find lots of other details on the website. We have illustrations showing how each widening would look at the 3 different points along the Selmon Expressway. Our aerial graphics show detailed conceptual design plans for the entire study limits, including noise wall locations and proposed ramp improvements for each alternative. The full matrix is also on the website, as are draft reports, a list of criteria we use to screen the alternatives, and how the noise is evaluated. There's also a comment form on the website. This form allows you to comment on each of the alternatives presented here tonight, and you can find the website on selmonstudies.com. So this gets us to step 4, gathering public input on the alternatives that you've just seen. Hopefully I've helped you understand how the alternatives compare with each other, as well as how they compare to a no-build alternative. Your comments will be taken into consideration as we work to select an alternative to advance for further refinement and evaluation. The study will conclude with a recommendation to advance either a preferred build or no-build alternative. In the first part of 2021, there will be a public hearing to present the preferred alternative. Please go to the website to sign up for the Selmon Studies newsletter to keep informed about the progress of this study. And the final step is to take this study, this PD&E study, to the THEA board for approval. After tonight, there is still an opportunity to submit questions or comments. The study website, selmonstudies.com, is up and ready to go. There is an opportunity on the website to comment in the comment form, send an email directly to the team, or you can send a letter to the authority. I put the information on this slide. And while you can send comments at any time, the official comment period will close at 5 p.m. on October 2nd, 2020. So now it's your turn. We'd like your input on the three alternatives presented to you tonight: the no build, alternative 2, and alternative 6. We want to know what you like and dislike about each alternative. We will keep the Q&A open for about 30 minutes more, and unless you message us separately, we will share all the questions and answers with the entire group. Finished with our question and answer. We're now going to close the meeting. Thank you guys for attending. We certainly appreciate your being here tonight. If you have further questions, you can go onto the website, shoot us an email, send us a snail mail, or fill out our contact us form. So again, appreciate you being here. Thank you very much.